왜 날 안 죽였어? 왜 나만 살려둔 거야? 왜? 들어와요!
After winning the Squid Game the year before, Gi-hun made it his mission to expose the twisted game and stop it for good. He couldn't stand the idea of more innocent people dying for someone else's entertainment. Driven by this goal, he returned to the deadly game and tried to open the eyes of the other players, but none of them listened. At the same time, Detective Jun-ho was on his own hunt. He was desperate to find a secret island where the game took place and tear the whole thing down. Like Gi-hun, he wanted to end the bloodshed once and for all. But the deeper they pushed, the harder it got. Jun-ho and his team hit wall after wall, trying to uncover the island's location. Back in the game, Gi-hun tried to rally a few allies and start a revolt. It backfired horribly. His closest friend, Young-bae, was murdered right in front of him. The frontman then pinned all the blame on Gi-hun, calling him the reason for Young-bae's death and the chaos that followed. Back inside the game, masked guards crushed the uprising without mercy, shooting down the rebels one after another, including Kyung-suk. But when No-yul, one of the masked soldiers, took aim at him, she quietly told him to fake his death if he wanted to live and see his daughter again. Barely holding on, Kyung-suk followed her lead. No-yul fired to make it look real, then had his body packed into a coffin marked for allies to find and keep him safe. Meanwhile, Gi-ho, another guard, was glad to see No-yul finally join their illegal organ trafficking ring that ran behind the scenes of the game. No-yul argued they were doing harsh work, but saving many lives with the organs. She then talked Gi-ho into showing her their hidden base. Without a clue he was being set up, Gi-ho agreed and led the way. Elsewhere, Jun-ho's team was shaken after losing a crew member. A drone operator had fallen overboard during the rough seas the night before. Captain Park guessed he might have been drunk and lost his balance, while Woo-suk pointed out the violent rocking had sent gear crashing down, so no one noticed the man going over. Young Gil told Jun-ho there was no point in searching. The body was long gone, and hunting for it would just waste time. Hearing this, they all decided to head for the nearest port and find a new drone operator. Back inside the game, the frontman decided to let Gi-hun live, wanting him to suffer under the weight of guilt until the very end. Soon, Gi-hun was found unconscious inside a coffin, drawing a crowd of players eager to see what was inside. Hyunju spotted that Gi-hun was still breathing and quickly moved him to a bed. When Gi-hun finally woke up, he asked about the friends who had joined the failed revolt. Hyunju's pained look told him everything. Not long after, masked soldiers entered to update the players on how many were left and how much money had piled up. Fueled by rage, Gi-hun charged at them, demanding answers on why he was spared. He even dared them to eliminate him right there, shouting wildly as he wrestled with his own despair.
왜 나만 살려둔 거야? 왜 날 안 죽였어? 왜 나만 살려둔 거야? 왜? 쏘라고 이 새끼들아!
It was in that moment, where death felt closer than ever and the true cruelty of their twisted choices was laid bare, that the game revealed its cold face once again. This wasn't just another fight for money. It was the return of a nightmare that refused to die. This was Squid Game 3. Meanwhile, in his office, the frontman took a call from Captain Park, who revealed Jun-ho's plan to get a new drone pilot. The frontman ordered Park to keep tailing them and make sure they stayed far from the island until the game wrapped up. If things spun out of control, he was to kill every last one of them, including Jun-ho. With that, the frontman stepped into the control room to brief his team. Down below, the players gathered to vote on whether to keep going. The results were clear. Most wanted to continue. They were then told to rest up for the next brutal round, starting the following day. At that point, the players who chose to stay turned on Gi-hun, furious over the failed revolt that had cost so many lives. Still, a few saw an upside. Fewer rivals meant a bigger slice of the prize. Jun-ho stepped right up to Gi-hun and threw all the blame on him. Pushed too far, Gi-hun snapped and grabbed her by the throat. But with his hands still cuffed, Jun-ho managed to break free and rush off. In another part of the facility, masked guards moved coffins one by one into the furnace, burning bodies to wipe away any trace of the game. But Kyung-suk's coffin, specially marked, bypassed the fire and dropped through a hidden chute. Down below, No-yul trailed Gi-ho into the basement where they kept Kyung-suk's coffin. They headed into a makeshift operating room where 3 partners were getting ready to harvest organs. The men stiffened when they saw No-yul, but Gi-ho calmed them, saying she was now part of their dark business. Just as the doctor prepared to cut into Kyung-suk, No-yul drew her gun without warning. She shot down the men instantly, putting a bullet in Gi-ho's head. But she spared the doctor, forcing him at gunpoint to save Kyung-suk, who was already slipping away from blood loss. During lunch, a player named Gum-ja stepped up and offered her meal to Gi-hun, who was still chained and hadn't eaten a thing. She urged him to stop carrying all the blame, reminding him he had only tried to protect their friends and end the bloodshed. Soon after, Hyunju came over to say sorry for failing to get the ammo to Gi-hun on time, which let the masked guard strike back. But Gum-ja's son, Young-sik, jumped in and pinned it all on Dae-ho. He claimed Dae-ho froze up in fear, fell to the floor shaking, and by the time Hyunju reached for the ammo, it was too late. The soldiers had already stormed in, forcing them to hold Hyunju back to save his life. Gi-hun turned furious, glaring at Dae-ho as he kept eating without a care. Meanwhile on the ship, Woo-suk paid Jun-ho a visit in his cabin. He shared a troubling detail. On the night the drone operator fell overboard, he saw Captain Park with a screwdriver. Woo-suk suspected Park might have killed the man and could be steering them away from the island on purpose. But Jun-ho shut it down. He said he trusted Park completely. This was the same man who had pulled him from the sea and helped him more than once in their mission. Jun-ho then told Woo-suk to get some rest since they'd be heading out early. The next day, as the players were led to the next game, horror struck them all. They saw the bodies of those who had rebelled, including Young-bae, put on display as a chilling warning. Over the loudspeaker, a woman's voice made it clear. No chaos would be allowed. The games were decided by fair votes, and every player had chosen to be there. Soon after, they reached the game arena, where the players were split into 2 sides, red and blue. Each person had to pick a ball and line up by color. This time, luck turned cruel. Young-sik ended up on the blue team, while his mother, Gum-ja, landed on the red. Back in the hidden operation room, the doctor warned that Kyung-suk was on the edge of death from heavy blood loss. With no time to waste, No-yul forced him at gunpoint to start a transfusion, offering her own blood to keep Kyung-suk alive. Shaking with fear, the doctor carried out the procedure and managed to save Kyung-suk. Meanwhile, in the arena, a masked guard laid out the rules for the next brutal round: hide and seek. The blue team had to either escape or stay hidden until time ran out. The red team had one goal: hunt them down. If the red team failed to kill the blue team in 30 minutes, they would all be executed. Fear swept through the players, hitting Gum-ja and Young-sik the hardest as they realized they were now enemies. Each blue team member was handed a key that could open any door in the arena. The red team received knives. But there was one strict rule: no one could harm their own team, or they'd face instant disqualification. Right before the game kicked off, players were given a chance to swap spots with someone from the other team, if both agreed. Hearing this, Myung-gi went to Jun-hee, his ex-girlfriend, knowing she was pregnant. He offered to switch places to keep her and their baby safe. But Jun-hee turned him down flat, determined to protect her child on her own. Worried sick, Myung-gi told her she might have to kill him to survive. The thought left Jun-ho crushed. At the same time, Young-sik pleaded with his mother to trade places. He knew she was too gentle to harm anyone and promised he'd protect her after he got his first kill, so they could both make out alive. Elsewhere at the docks, just as the crew was about to continue their hunt, Jun-ho got a call from Woo-suk. Woo-suk said he wouldn't be joining them. He had something else to look into. He also warned Jun-ho to keep his guard up around Captain Park, certain that Park was tied to the people behind the brutal game. When Park learned Woo-suk wasn't coming, he scoffed, calling him a coward who was too scared to continue their mission. Back in the game, some players from the blue team started begging the red team to switch places, hoping to improve their odds. Among them were Dae-ho and an older man named Jong-dae. Tired of Gi-hun's harsh looks, Dae-ho finally snapped and defended himself. He said he didn't want to die a pointless death like their fallen friends. Worse, he blamed Gi-hun for it all, claiming they should have forced more players to vote their way to shut the game down. But now it was too late, and they had to live with the loss. Before things went further, a masked guard stepped in and ordered Dae-ho to move on. Just before the game started, Gum-ja swapped vests with her son. Now she was on the blue team, and Young-sik took her place on the red team. Nearby, Jun-ho also switched vests with Myung-gi, pressing him to keep his word and protect her and their unborn child. The blue team then entered the arena first, given 2 minutes to hide before the hunt began. While they waited, Namgyu walked up to Myung-gi, suggesting they team up since taking down the blue team wouldn't be easy. Meanwhile, Jun-ho, slowed by her pregnancy, got help from Gum-ja and Hyun-ju, who guided her to a safer spot. Then the red team stormed in, and the hunt was on. Gi-hun set his sights on finding Dae-ho, burning for payback over his best friend's death. Back in the hidden operation room, Kyung-suk finally woke up, but his relief was short-lived. No-yul suddenly shot the doctor dead. She then pulled on her mask and told Kyung-suk she had done it to save him. Back in the game, the red team broke off in all directions, hunting for blue team players, while the blue team scattered, desperate to hide. Shanyo and her group reached a fork and paused so she could perform a ritual, hoping the spirits of the dead would show them the way. Nearby, Jong-dae managed to unlock one door with his key, but was stopped by another lock that needed a different shape. Another player soon arrived and unlocked it with his own key. Elsewhere, Hyun-ju, Gum-ja, and Jun-ho found 3 doors, each with a different keyhole, circle, triangle, and square. They were lucky. Between them, they had all 3 key types and quickly got through. Meanwhile, Gi-hun was hunting down Dae-ho, who ran for his life. Gi-hun nearly caught the wrong man when he grabbed a blue team player who looked like Dae-ho. Then he spotted the real Dae-ho slipping through a door below and vanishing. Across the arena, Young-sik jumped at a sudden figure, then relaxed when he saw it was just another red team member. In a different part of the maze, Namgyu and Myung-gi chased down a blue team player and trapped him in a room. When a man fought back, Myung-gi stabbed him to survive. As Namgyu moved in to finish the job, Myung-gi stopped him. He didn't trust Namgyu not to turn on him later, so he insisted they kill targets together. That way, they both move on to the next round and keep each other in check. After taking down their target, Namgyu and Myung-gi walked out, unaware that Min-soo had been hiding close by the whole time. Eager to shake off his coward label, Min-soo quietly grabbed Thanos' cross pendant, which held drug capsules, and swallowed one, determined to prove he wasn't weak. Elsewhere, Hyun-ju, Jun-ho, and Gum-ja ran into Yang-sam from the red team. Knowing Hyun-ju's past as a special forces soldier, Yang-sam tried to push him aside so he could go after the easier prey. But Hyun-ju refused to back down. He fought Yang-sam head-on and killed him to protect the others. In another part of the maze, Jong-dae and a teammate found a door with a triangle keyhole and opened it. But as soon as they stepped inside, a red team player rushed in and attacked. Jong-dae panicked, ran out, and slammed the door shut, trapping his teammate inside. Once he heard the fight was over, Jong-dae snatched up the dead player's key and bolted. Meanwhile, Namgyu and Myung-gi managed to kill another blue team player, locking in their advance to the next round. When the loudspeaker confirmed this, Jun-ho felt a spark of hope, sure Myung-gi would come for her soon. But Hyunju warned it was nearly impossible to find anyone in that maze. They had no choice but to keep moving and hunt for a way out. In another part of the arena, Namgyu offered to help Myung-gi track down Jun-ho. At first, Myung-gi didn't want any extra trouble, but he changed his mind when Namgyu laid out a plan. If they kept killing blue team players, it would leave fewer targets for the rest of the red team. That meant many red team players would fail to advance and be wiped out, giving them a clear edge. Meanwhile, Dae-ho ran into a red team player who tried to take him out. Dae-ho fought back with everything he had, knocking the man out by accident and grabbing his knife. Not far off, Hyunju led Jun-ho and Gum-ja into a room to hide. Suddenly, Jun-ho's water broke. She was going to labor right there. Elsewhere, Young-sik found a blue team player hiding. The man begged for mercy, saying his mother was dying in a hospital. Young-sik hesitated, but before he could decide, the blue team player lunged for his knife. They struggled until Kim-in, another red team player, stepped in and killed the blue team player on the spot, securing his own spot in the next round. At the same time, Shan-yo led her group into a room to check for danger. Moments later, she bolted out and vanished. Right after, Namgyu and Myung-gi came out of the same room and attacked Shan-yo's followers without mercy. While trying to escape, Shan-yo ran into Dae-ho, who was limping from an earlier fight. She kept running and crashed right into Gi-hun, who looked ready to eliminate her. In her panic, she gave up Dae-ho's location and Gi-hun took off after him, leaving her alive. After Gi-hun left, Shan-yo jumped in shock when Min-soo suddenly appeared, desperately asking about his friend. As Min-soo's behavior turned more unstable, Shan-yo panicked and ran off. She soon found a room with an exit door, but it needed 3 different keys to open, and she only had one. To mark the spot, she smeared blood on the wall, then left to hunt for the other keys. Elsewhere, Jong-dae, terrified for his life, decided to fake being dead when Namgyu and Myung-gi came near. Holding his breath, he tricked them. Namgyu even checked for a pulse and moved on. Not long after, Shan-yo showed up, planning to steal Jong-dae's key. When she realized he was still alive, they agreed to team up and head for the exit together. Meanwhile, Jun-ho gave birth to a healthy baby girl with Gum-ja and Hyunju's help. But their relief was short-lived. A red team player burst in and went straight for them. Hyunju stepped up to fight, struggling on his injured leg, but managed to kill the attacker. In the chaos, he stumbled on the room with the exit door. With the 3 keys he carried, Hyunju unlocked it, but instead of leaving, he turned back to get Gum-ja and Jun-ho. Before he could reach them, Myung-gi sprang from the shadows and drove a knife into him, eliminating him. In another part of the maze, Jong-dae and Shan-yo finally reached the exit door and unlocked it with their 3 keys. But as soon as Jong-dae stepped through, he yanked the keys back out and locked the door again, leaving Shan-yo trapped on the other side. Meanwhile, Gi-hun caught up with Dae-ho. That's when Dae-ho confessed he had never been a Marine and had never even fired a weapon. Though he begged for mercy and admitted his lies, Gi-hun still held him responsible for Young-bae's death and all the others they'd lost. Fueled by rage, Gi-hun moved in to kill him, but Dae-ho fought back with a knife. He managed to pin Gi-hun down and threw the blame right back at him. They wrestled in a vicious fight until Dae-ho knocked Gi-hun over and made a run for it. Gi-hun wasn't finished. He chased him down, cornered him, and strangled Dae-ho to death. earning his place in the next round. Elsewhere, Min-soo confronted Shan-yo in a room. When she cornered him again with sharp questions, his mind snapped. In his twisted haze, he thought Shan-yo was Namgyu, the one who used to torment him. Blinded by old hate, Min-soo stabbed her to death, convinced he was finally getting revenge. Not far away, Gum-ja and Jun-ho reached the exit door. But Young-sik showed up, shaking with fear. He admitted he hadn't killed anyone yet and, terrified of dying, aimed to kill Jun-ho, who was still weak from giving birth. Gum-ja stepped in and begged her son to take her life instead, sparing Jun-ho and the baby. Young-sik froze, torn between fear and guilt, but in the end, fear won. As he moved to strike Jun-ho, Gum-ja made a shocking choice. She stabbed her own son to save Jun-ho and the baby. In his last moments, Young-sik managed to whisper an apology to his mother. Overcome with sorrow and guilt, Gum-ja could only hold her son close one final time. Soon after, the hide-and-seek round ended. Masked soldiers stormed the arena to execute Red Team players who had failed to kill anyone, including Young-sik. Shockingly, some of these soldiers were actually VIP guests there just to watch the bloodshed for fun. The players who survived were taken back to the sleeping hall. Myung-gi waited there, tense and worried until he finally walked in with Gum-ja and the baby. Relief flooded his face, seeing they were safe. Meanwhile, Namgyu was panicking. He'd lost Thanos' necklace and tried to head back into the arena to look for it. Armed guards stopped him cold, forcing him to stay put. Elsewhere, No-yul and Kyung-suk, now dressed as masked soldiers, slipped out of the operating room. Still weak and hurting, Kyung-suk asked why she had saved him. No-yul didn't bother explaining. She just told him to do exactly as she said if he wanted to live. At the same time, the frontman gathered with the VIPs for dinner. Their masked manager, called the officer, got troubling news they'd lost contact with the operating room. Without delay, he ordered his men to check it out and report back. Meanwhile, Jun-ho got a call from Woo-suk, who shared more dirt on Captain Park. Woo-suk said Park's past was full of holes. No local fishermen or villagers even knew who he was. Jun-ho argued that wasn't solid proof Park killed the drone operator. Woo-suk agreed, but still warned Jun-ho to keep his guard up. Back in the game, the players gathered to vote on whether to keep the deadly contest going or finally end it. Gum-ja stepped forward and begged them to stop, pleading for the sake of Jun-ho and her newborn. She even offered up all the prize money she'd earned if it meant shutting down the game. But her words fell on deaf ears. Most players only cared about the promise of more cash. In the end, the vote showed a clear result. The majority wanted to continue. The players were then told to rest up for the next brutal round. Meanwhile, the VIPs chatted about Gum-ja's desperate move. Just then, the officer got alarming news. 3 masked soldiers were dead, and soldier number 16, actually the doctor, had vanished. The officer rushed to check the security feed and saw soldier 16 back in his room, not realizing it was now Kyung-suk under the mask. Elsewhere, Jun-ho and his team finally found an island and made plans to land. Captain Park warned them it was too risky because of the coral reefs, but Jun-ho pushed ahead, convinced he'd set foot on that very beach before. Not long after, the officer returned to his room and was stunned to see No-yul waiting for him. She revealed she was the one behind the chaos in the operating room. Holding him at gunpoint, she ordered him to assign her and Soldier 16 to patrol the island's edge and prepare a boat. They were planning to escape. The officer tried to argue it couldn't be done, but No-yul threatened to stir up trouble while the VIPs were still on the island, knowing it would land the officer in serious trouble. Meanwhile, Jun-ho finally reached the island he was sure was the same place where his own brother, the front man, had once shot him. After looking around, he confirmed to his team that this was the island they'd been searching for all along. That night, Gum-ja sat next to Gi-hun and let all her pain pour out. She broke down, confessing she had killed her only son with her own hands.
제가 죽였네요. 내 자식 새끼를 죽였어요.
Gi-hun turned to face her as she cried, blaming herself for Young-sik's death. Even so, Geum-ja knew she had to keep going. Her reason to live now was to protect Jun-ho and the baby. Trusting Gi-hun's true heart, she begged him to always look after them. Gi-hun tried to tell her he wasn't the good man she thought he was, but Geum-ja refused to believe it. She kept pleading with him to keep Jun-ho and the baby safe. Elsewhere, Woo-suk broke into Captain Park's house, while Park was still out at sea with Jun-ho's crew. As Woo-suk searched the place, he found a photo that made his blood run cold. Captain Park was pictured fishing with the recruiter, the same man who had dragged Woo-suk and his boss into the deadly game that cost his boss's life. Suddenly, Park's guard dog charged at him, but Woo-suk pulled his gun and took it down. Just as he was about to leave, Woo-suk discovered a hidden compartment stuffed with cash and a masked soldier's uniform exactly like the ones from the game. Before he could take it all in, police burst in and arrested him on the spot. The next morning, before anything kicked off, a masked soldier went around handing out breakfast to the others. When No-yul got her tray, she found a key hidden under the bread, a secret gift placed there by order of the officer. Though it looked like he had agreed to let her go, the officer still didn't trust her. He told his men to search the operating room again and report back. Meanwhile, the players were shaken when Geum-ja had done the unthinkable. She couldn't bear to keep playing a game that forced her to risk others. Her death hit Jun-ho and Gi-hun hard. They knew Geum-ja had spent her final moments caring more about saving lives than about herself. Elsewhere, the officer learned that the doctor was dead and that the person now wearing Soldier 16th uniform was actually player number 246. As No-yul had requested, the officer sent Soldiers 11 through 20 to patrol the island's edge. Kyung-suk, still dressed as one of them, had no choice but to follow orders. He grabbed a weapon from his locker, even though he had never fired one in his life. Meanwhile, the players were led to the next game. Jun, still weak and limping from her injuries in childbirth, struggled to keep up while carrying her baby. Seeing this, Gi-hun stepped in and offered to hold the child, worried for Jun-ho's fragile state. In that moment, Jun-ho broke down and confessed how torn up she felt inside, blaming herself for the deaths of Geum-ja and Hyunju. But Gi-hun made her stop. He told her none of it was on her. Everyone was responsible for their own choices. Hyunju could have saved himself when he found the exit, but he went back for Geum-ja and Jun-ho, wanting them all to escape together. Geum-ja also made her choice when she killed her own son to save Jun-ho and the baby. Gi-hun promised he'd do whatever it took to keep Jun-ho's baby alive. Meanwhile, inside the VIP lounge, the guests talked about Jun-ho, sure she wouldn't survive the next game. One of them even suggested throwing her baby into the game just to spice things up. This round turned out to be jump rope. Players had to cross a bridge while jumping rope, and they only had 20 minutes to do it. Gi-hun's plan was to leave the baby, get Jun-ho across, then come back for the child. But a masked soldier cut him off and made it clear. Anyone who didn't cross in 20 minutes would be executed, including the baby. When Gi-hun argued the baby wasn't a player, the soldier shut him down by aiming his gun straight at him. The game started, but no one dared to make the first move, all frozen by the fear of falling from such a height. Namgyu stood there shaking, and Min-soo came over to check on him. But Namgyu shoved him away, angry and panicked. Knowing Namgyu was hunting for Thanos' necklace, Min-soo pulled it out and then tossed it right into the middle of the bridge. Desperate for the drug hidden inside, Namgyu was forced to start crossing, jumping rope step by step. At first, he managed to get halfway. But when he grabbed the necklace and found the drug missing, he lost his grip on reality. His focus slipped, he missed a jump, and fell to his death.
야, 혹시 이거 때문에 그래? 족밥 새끼야?
Meanwhile, Jun-ho, in tears, begged Gi-hun to get her baby across. Gi-hun promised he would come back for her, knowing she couldn't handle the jumps on her injured leg. Gi-hun moved forward slowly, carefully timing each jump and keeping his balance on the swaying bridge. When he reached a wide gap in the center, the risk shot even higher. He had to clear both the swinging ropes and the empty space. But he pulled it off, landing safely on the other side. The players burst into cheers. In June, he let out a breath of pure relief, seeing her baby safe in Gi-hun's arms. Seeing Gi-hun make it across, more players finally found the nerve to start. With time slipping away, a player named Lee Suk managed to reach the end. He acted like he was cheering the others on, but it was all a trick. Suddenly, Lee Suk started shoving players off the bridge, trying to secure the prize for himself. By blocking the path at the edge, he caused others to miss their jumps and fall. Some panicked and pushed whoever was closest, hoping to survive and grab a bigger share of the money. Gi-hun, set on going back for Jun-ho, warned Lee Suk to stop blocking players who had fought so hard to get that far. Lee Suk finally moved, letting others through, including Jong-dae, who managed to cross safely. Meanwhile, Myung-gi offered to help Jun-ho over the bridge, but she shot him down, furious over Hyunju's death. To her, Myung-gi was nothing but a selfish man chasing money, and she wanted no part of him, even if he was her baby's father. As Jun-ho and Myung-gi argued, Lee Suk suddenly shoved Gi-hun, nearly sending him over the edge. Lee Suk tried to finish him off, but Gi-hun fought back with everything he had, finally pushing Lee Suk off the bridge and out of the game for good.
빨리 들어와요! 움직이세요! 제발 비켜요!
The game went on. Since Jun-ho refused his help, Myung-gi crossed the bridge by himself and made it across. With only seconds left on the clock, Jun-ho told Gi-hun to stay put. She begged him to protect her baby, knowing she couldn't cross and would be eliminated. Jun-ho had already decided to give up her life if it meant saving her child. As time ran out, she became the last player to fall, sacrificing her life for her baby's sake. Meanwhile, in the VIP lounge, the guests turned their attention to Jun-ho's baby, who was still alive because of Gi-hun. Since Jun-ho was gone, they talked about simply getting rid of the baby. But the front man suggested something else, adding the baby to the game under number 222 to replace Jun-ho. The VIPs loved the idea, eager to watch how a newborn in the game would raise the stakes. When the final 8 players learned that Jun-ho's baby would now count as a competitor, most of them exploded in outrage. They had expected to split a bigger prize after Jun-ho died, not share it with a newborn. Furious, they demanded the baby be kicked out of the game, which made Gi-hun fear even more for the child's safety. Driven by greed, some even tried to attack Gi-hun and the baby. But masked guards stepped in fast, warning everyone that violence against other players wouldn't be allowed, at least for now. At the police station, Woo-suk tried to convince the officers that Captain Park was tied to the group behind the brutal game on the island. He urged them to investigate, but they found nothing linking Park to any criminal network. One officer even pointed out that the only stain on Park's record was a gambling charge from a decade ago, which he had already settled with a fine. Since then, Park had lived like any ordinary citizen, so they brushed off Woo-suk's claims as groundless. Meanwhile, Jun-ho and his team met to plan their next move after confirming they'd found the island where Jun-ho had once been shot by the front man. Captain Park marked dangerous sailing areas on their map, and they agreed to keep searching the next day. Not long after, Captain Park got a call from the police. They told him someone had broken into his house and claimed to be part of a criminal operation. When the officer revealed the intruder was Woo-suk, Captain Park knew right then he'd been exposed. Elsewhere, Woo-suk pleaded with the officer to give him his phone so he could warn Jun-ho. When that failed, he grabbed it and ran, managing to reach Jun-ho and reveal what he'd found in Park's house, that Park was involved with the people running the deadly game. Realizing how serious things had become, Captain Park quickly called his partner, Captain Ko, and ordered him to wipe out everyone on the ship. Captain Park then grabbed his rifle and opened fire on Jun-ho's team. Hearing the shots, Jun-ho, who was up on the deck, snatched a crossbow and fired back, hitting Park. As Park lay dying, Jun-ho demanded to know why he had saved him before. Park simply said he was following orders. When Jun-ho pressed him about where the island was, Park stayed silent and took that secret to his grave. Meanwhile, the 9 players left, including the baby, sat down for dinner. It was time to vote on whether to keep the game going or end it. A masked guard dropped a chilling hint. In the next round, players could pick at least 3 others to eliminate. In response, Gi-hun and Min-soo voted to stop, marking an X, but the rest were blinded by greed and chose to continue. Elsewhere, even after losing so many teammates, Jun-ho pushed on with the mission, determined to rescue Gi-hun and find his brother. At the same time, No-yul and Kyung-suk made it to the dock and boarded a boat arranged by the officer. But as they started to leave, the officer called No-yul. He warned her he knew exactly who Kyung-suk was and threatened to harm Kyung-suk's daughter, who was in the hospital fighting cancer. Faced with this threat, No-yul turned the boat back toward the island. She told Kyung-suk to run, find the police, and protect his daughter. Neither of them realized the boat was bugged. The officer tracked their location and quickly ordered his men to hunt them down. Meanwhile, 6 players, led by Myung-gi, plotted to wipe out Gi-hun, Min-soo, and the baby. They all agreed that getting rid of the 3 would give them a clear shot at the prize and a bigger payout. That night, while the others slept, Gi-hun was taken to meet the front man. The front man handed him a knife, telling him to use it, either to defend himself and the baby or to kill the other players in their sleep, guaranteeing he and the baby would survive and win. When Gi-hun demanded to know why, the front man pulled off his mask. It was In-ho his old friend Gi-hun thought was dead. Rage took over, and Gi-hun raised the knife to strike. But In-ho told him to go ahead, warning that killing him wouldn't stop the game. Even with his fury boiling over, Gi-hun lowered the blade and walked out, knife in hand. Years before, In-ho had faced the same cruel choice. The front man at that time had given him a knife too, pushing him to kill and win. Unlike Gi-hun, In-ho did it. He slaughtered the last players to claim the prize. This moment proved that Gi-hun was nothing like In-ho, even when trapped in the same brutal game. Meanwhile, Jun-ho stayed locked on his mission to find the island. Out of nowhere, he got a radio call from his brother In-ho, warning him to turn back or he'd end up dead. But Jun-ho wouldn't back down. He dared his brother to come kill him himself. The next day, as the players got ready for the next round, No-yul slipped into the officer's office and held him at gunpoint. She forced him to wipe all records of Kyung-suk from the game's database to protect him and his daughter. Though clearly annoyed, the officer erased every trace of Kyung-suk from the system and the main server. But then he dropped a revelation. There were still paper files on every player kept upstairs in the front man's room. Hearing that, No-yul ordered him to take her there. Inside the elevator, the officer suddenly lunged at her, sparking a brutal fight. Both were former North Korean soldiers, strong and skilled. But the officer's sheer power started to overwhelm No-yul. As he pinned her down, he admitted he knew she and Kyung-suk had once worked together but couldn't figure out why she was risking everything for him and his kid. With nowhere to run, No-yul begged him to let them go. Instead, he stabbed her. Thinking it was over, the officer reached for his radio to call his men. But No-yul began crawling across the floor. He laughed, sure she was trying to get to the elevator, which wouldn't work without his mask. He didn't realize she was reaching for her rifle. By the time he caught on, it was too late. No-yul grabbed her gun and shot him dead. Back in the game, the players were told to take an elevator up to the top of the tower for the final round. At the top, they stepped out onto a square platform with nothing but open air around them. This time, the rules were simple and brutal. Push someone off the edge to eliminate them. As the group argued over who should go first, Min-soo started to lose it. The drug he'd taken from Thanos' necklace kicked in hard, making him see things that weren't there. In his mind, Thanos and Namgyu were alive again, closing in to hurt him. The players finally agreed that Junhee's baby should be thrown off. But Myung-gi pointed out that Gi-hun would fight to the death to protect the child, and the rules only let them eliminate one player each round. He pushed for a safer move, get rid of Min-soo instead. When Min-soo realized they had chosen him, he begged them to spare him. But Myung-gi and the others knew if no one was removed, they'd all be doomed. Myung-gi ripped an iron rod from the platform and shoved Min-soo off. As Min-soo fell, he had one last twisted vision of being reunited with his friend, though it was only in his head.
미안해.
After taking out the officer, No-Yul hurried to the front man's office and found a door that led down to the basement. There, she uncovered stacks of printed player files, proving the game had been going on long before she ever got involved. Back up on the tower, the players were ordered to move to a new triangular platform for the next round. Sticking to their earlier deal, Jongdae and 5 others decided it was time to get rid of Junhee's baby. They tried to convince Gi-hun to hand over the child. At one moment, Yoon-tae grabbed an iron rod and pushed Gi-hun toward the edge, threatening to shove them both off. But Gi-hun didn't back down. He warned Yoon-tae that the others were already plotting behind his back. If he made this move, he might be the next target. Shaken by the thought, Yoon-tae stepped back to rethink with the group. Fed up, Ki-min slammed the button to start the round, giving them only 15 minutes to settle it. While the players argued and drew lots on who would kill the baby, Kyung-suk was fighting for his life somewhere else. A squad of masked soldiers hunted him down. He managed to shoot one, but his old wound ripped open, leaving him weak and bleeding. When the soldiers cornered him and raised their guns to finish him, Kyung-suk braced for the end. But just then, Jun-ho arrived, gunning down the soldiers and saving Kyung-suk at the last second. By the luck of the draw, the players picked Lee to be the one to throw Junhee's baby off the tower. They tied their jackets into a rope to keep Lee from falling with the baby. Lee then tried to lure Gi-hun to the center of the platform, hoping to pull the baby away more easily. But Gi-hun caught on fast and cut the fabric connecting Lee to the others. Seeing their plan falling apart, Jongdae shouted for Myung-gi to use the iron rod to push Gi-hun and the baby. Myung-gi swung, but Gi-hun dodged at the last second. The rod slammed into Lee instead, sending him off the edge to his death. Gi-hun raised his knife, ready for another attack, but Myung-gi quickly claimed he was on Gi-hun's side and wanted to protect the baby. Turning to the group, Myung-gi dropped a bomb. He was the baby's father. Shock rippled through the players and even the VIPs watching. Myung-gi told Gi-hun he had hoped to leave this place with Junhee and their child, but Junhee hadn't trusted him. Now he begged Gi-hun to believe in him, saying they could escape together with the baby. With weapons in hand, he was sure they could take down Jongdae and the others. Not ready to lose, Jongdae and his crew grabbed their own teammate, Woo, and beat him bloody. Jongdae announced they'd use Woo as the sacrifice for the final round, sparing the baby. But Gi-hun refused, demanding they draw lots again without involving the child. That pushed Ki-min over the edge. He lunged at Gi-hun while Yoon-tae attacked Myung-gi. A brutal fight broke out. Ki-min tried to wrestle away Gi-hun's knife, but Gi-hun turned it around and stabbed him. On the other side, Myung-gi overpowered Yoon-tae, shoving him off the tower to his death. After taking out Yoon-tae, Myung-gi set his sights on Jong-dae. At that moment, Jong-dae dropped to his knees, begging for his life and offering each of them 1,000,000,000 won. But Myung-gi's greed ran deeper. He killed Jong-dae anyway, knowing he'd pocket a much bigger cut, 15,000,000,000 won more than what Jong-dae promised. Across the platform, Woo, terrified of being Myung-gi's next target, chose to do the unthinkable by jump off the tower. Meanwhile, Jun-ho caught up with Kyung-suk and, thinking he was part of the group, held him at gunpoint. Kyung-suk quickly explained he was just another player who had managed to escape. To be sure, Jun-ho scanned him with a special device that proved he was telling the truth. Jun-ho then pressed him for the location of the island. After treating Kyung-suk's wounds and alerting the Coast Guard, Jun-ho geared up to go to the island himself to save Gi-hun. Before taking off, he told Kyung-suk to hurry to the police and report everything before the masterminds could vanish and wipe out all the evidence. Back in the game, Myung-gi, Gi-hun, and Junie's baby made it to the final round and got ready to cross to the circular tower. But just as Gi-hun stepped onto the bridge, Myung-gi turned on him, raising an iron rod and demanding he hand over the baby. Gi-hun froze. If Myung-gi killed him now, then later he'd have no choice but to throw the baby off himself to win. But Myung-gi didn't seem to care. He kept pressing Gi-hun to give up the child. Meanwhile, deep underground, No-Yul found the game's massive archive. She grabbed a bottle of whiskey and a lighter and set the files on fire, destroying piles of player records. Among them, she found a file on herself, stuffed with details and old photos of her with her husband and daughter. Elsewhere, the front man was alerted by his men that a fishing boat had shown up on radar and was headed straight for the island. Back on the bridge, Gi-hun tried to talk sense into Myung-gi, saying he'd sacrifice himself in the last round so Myung-gi and the baby could win. But Myung-gi didn't get it. He couldn't understand why Gi-hun cared so much about a baby that wasn't even his. He even threw out wild guesses, wondering if Gi-hun and Junhee had some secret bond, though they'd only met in this game. Myung-gi had lived so hard and bitter that he couldn't believe anyone could be truly kind. In his world, people only ever used or crushed him, so he always expected the worst when someone tried to show him real care. Not wanting to make things worse, Gi-hun slowly set Junie's baby down on the bridge and backed away to the triangular tower. The moment Myung-gi focused on the child, Gi-hun quietly pulled out his knife and jumped straight to the circular tower. Seeing this, Myung-gi snatched up his iron rod and charged, and the two slammed into a brutal fight. When Gi-hun finally forced Myung-gi into a corner, Myung-gi grabbed the baby and threatened to drop the child from the high ledge. Not willing to risk the baby's life, Gi-hun immediately threw his knife aside. But Myung-gi, driven by greed and with no sense left, grabbed the blade and lunged at Gi-hun in a wild attack. They clashed hard, Myung-gi pushing Gi-hun back until both of them went over the edge. Gi-hun managed to grab a steel beam, while Myung-gi held on desperately to Gi-hun's jacket. Even then, Gi-hun tried to keep him from falling, straining to hold the fabric. But the jacket tore bit by bit until Myung-gi finally slipped and fell to his death. Gi-hun climbed back up, realizing they hadn't pressed the button to start the round. Knowing what it meant, he pressed it himself and pulled the baby close, holding on tight. Meanwhile, in the front man's office, No-Yul was ready to do the unthinkable, feeling she had nothing left after losing her family. Just then, she saw Gi-hun on the tower, holding the baby. The VIPs whispered, thinking he might drop the child to secure his win for a second time. In the control room, the front man watched closely, half expecting Gi-hun to sacrifice the baby. But to his surprise, Gi-hun stepped back from the ledge, keeping the child safe. He hugged the baby with real care and gently kissed the child's forehead. Not long after, Gi-hun spoke up, aiming his words straight at the people watching, those who treated human lives like entertainment. Then, in a shocking move, he jumped off the tower, giving up his life to save the baby. The game declared the baby player 222 as the winner. Watching this unfold, No Yul changed her mind and chose not to do the unthinkable. Meanwhile, a masked soldier told the frontman that the Coast Guard had tracked them down. The frontman didn't waste a second. He ordered an immediate evacuation and activated a destruction protocol to wipe out all traces of the game. At the same time, Jun-ho, who had been diving underwater, finally surfaced inside a cave that led to the island. He got his rifle ready and climbed up. Right then, he spotted a bomb already counting down. Jun-ho raced up to the arena and found his brother, In-ho, standing there holding the baby. When Jun-ho tried to confront him, In-ho stayed silent and simply walked off. With the bomb seconds from blowing, Jun-ho bolted, making it out just before the entire place exploded. Later, after Gi-hun's death, someone quietly slipped into his motel room and found the huge piles of cash he had left behind. 6 months later, No Yul went to an amusement park and ran into Kyung-suk, who was back to working as a street painter. Kyung-suk said he felt like he'd met her before, but couldn't place where. Just then, his daughter showed up, looking much healthier than before. Kyung-suk told No Yul that many people had stepped in to help pay for her treatment, and he was truly thankful. As No Yul was about to leave, she got a call from her agent with shocking news. Her daughter was still alive and living in China. Meanwhile, Jun-ho picked up Woo-suk, who had just gotten out of prison. On the drive back, they talked about Gi-hun's motel room. It was empty now, all the money gone. As unlikely as it sounded, they hoped Gi-hun was still alive somewhere with his fortune. When Jun-ho finally got home, he was stunned to see baby number 222 waiting inside. She looked healthy, sitting next to a black envelope tied with a pink ribbon. Jun-ho opened it and found a gold card showing player 222 had won, along with an ATM card in his own name. When he checked the balance, he was floored. There was over 45 billion won sitting in the account. The next day, No Yul was getting ready to fly to China to search for her daughter. At the same time, Woo-suk made plans to turn Gi-hun's old motel into a guest house and start a new business. Over in Los Angeles, In-ho paid a visit to Gi-hun's daughter, now a teenager. She was upset at first, saying Gi-hun had never reached out and that she no longer wanted to see him as her father. But when In-ho told her Gi-hun had died, guilt washed over her. She took the black box of keepsakes In-ho offered. Inside, she found her father's old uniform and an ATM card in his name. Later, while sitting in his car, In-ho spotted a woman in a suit playing dakji with a man. His eyes went wide. He knew her instantly. She was the recruiter, the one who roped people into the deadly game. In that moment, it hit In-ho hard. He hadn't truly destroyed the system behind the game. They might not be able to run it in South Korea anymore, but it wouldn't stop them from starting the same deadly game somewhere else. The story close. So the moral of the story is, if you ever end up in a deadly game for money, trust no one. Your best buddy might sell you out for pocket change or push you off a tower like yesterday's trash.